Right, I'm back. I've set up my phone as a mobile hotspot and connected to that. Hopefully we won't have any more dramas. And again, if I were a professional, I would download all of the videos and put them all together and blah-de-blah, don't care. Right. I've tweeted the link. We're gonna wait for wasn't a very long wait. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. I really do hope third time is the charm. Yep. Hey Julie. I'm connected via mobile hotspot to my phone, which hopefully will help us. Yeah, I've been having problems with the internet, but I personally believe that the stream went down because we were just about to meet Dracula, and I think the computer got scared. I'm just going to turn down the brightness on this so I'm not lighting up my face from below like a Halloween story while I'm reading. It was absolutely Dracula magic. Is hashtag Dracula magic a funny hashtag or no? No, there's nothing there. Yeah, YouTube was afraid of the Dracula. I'm not. I'm afraid of like drowning in a car, but not of Dracula. Okay. I want to wait kind of for everyone who was here before I actually start reading about Dracula. Are you actually a late night joke writer? Man, I always thought I could do that. I mean, I couldn't because I'd put too much like irony poisoning into it and no one would think it was funny ever. Hey, we got 10 people here. That is pretty much everyone who was here when we were just about to meet Count Dracula. And YouTube got scared. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Yes. Yeah. My Twitter is more like 2 people find it funny, but they really like it. I had a joke about Hugh Fitzcan this morning. I mean, that's relatable. Right. Okay. Jono's just arrived at the castle. And I think Truth Point is the late night show for Twitter users. Truth Point, Dark Web Rising, if you don't know, is the show that Drill does with Derek Estevez Olsen. Very funny, very good. Watching the live chat that goes alongside it is also very funny. It's full of like normal people not really understanding what's happening. Pretty good. I would also like to plug while I'm here something else that I have not made or participated in. Episode 1, very, very funny podcast. I just became a subscriber so I could get the Patreon exclusive ones. So if you subscribe to me on Patreon, you're essentially letting me access a lot of really, really funny stuff. I'm pretty sure everyone who follows me is listening to it anyway, but the premise is that every episode of the podcast is the first episode of a failed podcast. Right? It's good. Very good. Okay, let's meet Dracula. We're nearly 5 minutes in. This is podcast. It is called E1 or episode 1. I should actually probably, since I'm bringing them up, I should plug their like SoundCloud, which I have open already, so it's not weird. There we go. There's one of them. I don't know if this one's funny. I haven't heard it yet. I queued it up to listen to later. Right, okay. A key was turned. with a loud grating noise of long disuse, and the great door swung back. Within, stole, stoled. Within stood a tall old man, clean-shaven save for a long white moustache, and clad in black from head to foot, without a single speck of colour about him anywhere. He held in his hands an antique silver lamp, in which the flame burned without chimney or globe of any kind, throwing long quivering shadows as it flickered in the draught of the open door. The old man motioned me in with his right hand, with a courtly gesture, saying he made no motion of stepping to meet me, but stood like a statue, as though his gesture of welcome had fixed him into stone. The instant, however, that I had stepped over the threshold, he moved impulsively forward, and holding out his hand, grasped mine with a strength which made me wince, an effect which was not lessened by the fact that it seemed as cold as ice, more like the hand of a dead than a living man. The great detective is on the case. He's just worked out that the castle's kind of sus. Again he said, "Welcome to my house. Come freely, go safely, and leave something of the happiness you bring." This is one of the most famous Dracula quotes. I've seen it on welcome mats, which is the kind of welcome mat I would have probably if I had such things. The strength of the handshake was so much akin to that which I had noticed in the driver, whose face I had not seen, that for a moment I doubted if it were not the same person to whom I was speaking. So to make sure, I said interrogatively, "Count Dracula?" He bowed in a courtly way as he replied, "I am Dracula, and I bid you welcome Mr. Harker to my house. Come in, the night air is chill, and you must need to eat and rest." As he was speaking, he put the lamp on a bracket on the wall, and stepping out, took my luggage. He had carried it in before I could forestall him. I protested, but he insisted, "Nay, sir, you are my guest. It is late, and my people are not available. Let me see to your comfort myself." I hope no one's disappointed by me not doing the Dracula accent. But there is some genuinely chilling stuff in this book, and I don't really want to make it funny, what we do in the Shadow style, which is amazing, by the way, the film and the series. I really want to write for that series. He insisted on carrying my traps along the passage. Again, bags. Jonathan is not carrying a bunch of bear traps that he travels with all the time, although that would be very funny. He insisted on carrying my traps along the passage, and then up a great winding stair, and along another great passage, on whose stone floor our steps rang heavily. At the end of this, he threw open a heavy door, and I rejoiced to see within a well-lit room, in which a table was spread for supper, and on whose mighty hearth a great fire of logs, freshly replenished, flamed and flared. The Count halted, putting down my bags, closed the door, and crossing into the room, opened another door, which led into a small octagonal room, lit by a single lamp, and seemingly without a window of any sort. Passing through this, he opened another door and motioned me to enter. It was a welcome sight, for here was a great bedroom, well lighted and warmed with another log fire, also added to but lately, for the top logs were fresh, which sent a hollow roar up the wide chimney. The Count himself left my luggage inside and withdrew, saying before he closed the door, "You will need after your journey to refresh yourself by making your toilet. I trust you will find all you wish. When you are ready, come into the other room, where you will find your supper prepared." And before we go on, I'm going to sniff, and my mother in heaven is going to be mad at me. She couldn't stand sniffing. Before we go on, I have to explain that making your toilet is not... I mean, it's a very funny phrase, but, in a sense, it means to get yourself ready, right? That's why we have, like, eau de toilette, toilet water, which sounds very funny to us, but it just means a kind of water that you use while you're getting ready. your preparation, that kind of thing. I think in French they still say faire la toilette, I think. Maybe not. But that's what Dracula means. Although I probably will laugh every time it comes up. The light and warmth and the Count's courteous welcome seemed to have dissipated all my doubts and fears. Having then reached my normal state, I discovered that I was half famished with hunger. So making a hasty toilet, I went into the other room. Oh, I told you. I told you. Lo Anselmo, yeah. It absolutely does. I found supper already laid out. My host, who stood on one side of the great fireplace, leaning against the stonework, made a graceful wave of his hand to the table and said, I pray you be seated and sup how you please. You will, I trust, excuse me that I do not join you, but I have dined already, and I do not sup. Should probably explain this as well. I'm so sorry about the sniffling. I really am. I mean, it's better than an active nosebleed situation. That would be kinetically difficult. Dinner at this point, it's still moving as a word, but it really means lunch. The midday meal is the dinner, and supper is a light meal that you have in the evening, right? So it is moving in this time period, but it's not, everyone understands what you mean if you refer to lunch as dinner and the evening meal as supper. And in a lot of regions, that is still like the case. So Dracula's saying, no, man, I ate earlier. I had a big lunch. I'm like, I don't eat after 7 p.m. because that's this amazing diet secret. I eat as much as I want right up to 7 p.m. and then nothing. In the morning, I have a big glass of hot water with some lemon squeezed into it. And also, I don't know, I've been watching videos about goop. Terrifying stuff. Anyway, Dracula has dined already and does not sup. I handed to him the sealed letter which Mr. Hawkins had entrusted to me. He opened it and read it gravely. Then, with a charming smile, he handed it to me to read. One passage of it, at least, gave me a thrill of pleasure. I must regret that an attack of gout, from which malady I am a constant sufferer, forbids absolutely any travelling on my part for some time to come. But I am happy to say that I can send a sufficient substitute, one in whom I have every possible confidence. He is a young man, full of energy and talent in his own way, and of a very faithful disposition. He is discreet and silent, and has grown into manhood in my service. He shall be ready to attend on you when you will during his stay, and shall take your instructions in all matters. That's nice. The Count himself came forward and took off the cover of a dish, and I fell to at once on an excellent roast chicken. This, with some cheese and a salad and a bottle of old Tokay, of which I had 2 glasses, was my supper. I do not know what beverage that is. During the time I was eating it, the Count asked me many questions as to my journey, and I told him by degrees all I had experienced. Dracula must have found it hard not to laugh. Oh my God, they kept telling you not to go, but you did, and you're here. Yeah, you do. He's not smart, but he's very faithful and loyal. He'll do as he's told. He's a nice guy. Not a brain box, but he's not a dickhead. Bless him. By this time I had finished my supper, and by my host's desire had drawn up a chair by the fire and begun to smoke a cigar which he offered me, at the same time excusing himself that he did not smoke. He is. He's the goodest dog, really. He's lovely, but, boring. I had now an opportunity of observing him, and found him of a very marked Physiognomy. Physiognomy. Yeah, no, Keanu was good casting. Although I will always treasure the way he says Budapest. It's the funniest part. His face was a very strong aquiline, with high bridge of the thin nose and peculiarly arched nostrils, with a lofty domed forehead and hair growing scantily round the temples but profusely elsewhere. His eyebrows were very massive, almost meeting over the nose, and with bushy hair that seemed to curl in its own profusion. The mouth, so far as I could see it under the heavy moustache, was fixed and rather cruel looking, with peculiarly sharp white teeth. These protruded over the lips, whose remarkable ruddiness showed astonishing vitality in a man of his years. For the rest, his ears were pale, and at the tops extremely pointed. The chin was broad and strong, and the cheeks firm though thin. The general effect was one of extraordinary pallor. Hitherto I had noticed the backs of his hands as they lay on his knees in the firelight, and they had seemed rather white and fine, but seeing them now close to me, I could not but notice that they were rather coarse, broad, with squat fingers. Strange to say, there were hairs in the centre of the palm. His nails were long and fine, and cut to a sharp point. As the Count leaned over me and his hands touched me, I could not repress a shudder. It may have been that his breath was rank, but a horrible feeling of nausea came over me, which, do what I would, I could not conceal. The Count, evidently noticing it, drew back, and with a grim sort of smile, which showed more than he had yet done in his protuberant teeth, sat himself down again on his own side of the fireplace. Yeah, Dracula has the moustache in Bram Stoker's Dracula, the 1994 one that is incredibly funny. He has it there, I think. No, I can't remember. I think he has it at the beginning of the BBC Dracula miniseries on Netflix, which is so bad. So bad. It has so much potential and it just parts of it are so good. Yes, the Count does have hairy palms, which is a myth that means he is either some kind of, werewolf or revenant or undead, or that he masturbates too much. Depends where you're from. I choose to believe it's both. Oh yeah, Christopher Lee would have. And Castlevania, I keep getting recommended that, and I really don't like anime. Like I've watched a bunch of anime, and I can't connect to the cartoons. I don't like Pixar either. I hated Up. I found it tedious and maudlin. If you want to unfollow me over that, I don't care. I do not care. One of the funniest vampire movies I've ever seen is Scars of Dracula. I think Christopher Lee may have been in it. It was one of those, direct-to-video bullshit ones. Me and my friends watched it, and we could not tell if it was set in the 70s or in the historical period, which is what we call everything that has, vague costuming and shitty, research. We couldn't tell. We saw the clothes. We saw, like, everything that was going on, and we still don't know. Sorry. Let's actually read some Dracula, shall we? We were both silent for a while, and as I looked toward the window, I saw the first dim streak of the coming dawn. There seemed a strange stillness over everything, but as I listened, I heard, as if from down below in the valley, the howling of many wolves. The Count's eyes gleamed, and he said, "Listen to them, the children of the night. What music they make." Another very, very famous Dracula quote. To which I would say that's not music, and to which Dracula would say, "I have forgot so many things." which was a tweet I did once, was pretty good, according to me. Seeing, I suppose, some expression in my face strange to him, he added, "Oh, sir, you dwellers in the city cannot enter into the feelings of the hunter. Tell that to serial killers." Then he rose and said, "But you must be tired. Your bedroom is all ready, and tomorrow you shall sleep as late as you will. I have to be away till the afternoon, so sleep well and dream well." With a courteous bow, he opened for me himself the door to the octagonal room, and I entered my bedroom. I am all in a sea of wonders. I doubt, I fear, I think strange things which I dare not confess to my own soul. God help me, if only for the sake of those dear to me. I don't think, sorry, I don't think he's twigged that Dracula's a vampire. I think he's twigged that Dracula is a very peculiar man and there is no one else with him in the castle. Pretty creepy. 7th of May. It is again early morning, but I have rested and enjoyed the last 24 hours. I slept till late in the day and awoke of my own accord. When I had dressed myself, I went into the room where we had supped and found a cold breakfast laid out, with coffee kept hot by the pot being placed on the hearth. There was a card on the table on which was written, "I have to be absent for a while. Do not wait for me. D." Sounds like my life, am I right? That old D's just going to be absent for a while. Do not wait for me. I set to and enjoyed a hearty meal. When I had done, I looked for a bell so that I might let the servants know I had finished, but I could not find one. There are certainly odd deficiencies in the house, considering the extraordinary evidences of wealth which are around me. The table service is of gold, and so beautifully wrought that it must be of immense value. The curtains and upholstery of the chairs and sofas, and the hangings of my bed are of the costliest and most beautiful fabrics, and must have been of fabulous value when they were made, for they are centuries old, though in excellent order. I saw something like them in Hampton Court, but there they were worn and frayed and moth-eaten. But still, in none of the rooms is there a mirror. There is not even a toilet glass on my table, and I had to get the little shaving glass from my bag before I could either shave or brush my hair. I have not yet seen a servant anywhere, or heard a sound near the castle except the howling of wolves. Some time after I had finished my meal, I do not know whether to call it breakfast or dinner, for it was between 5 and 6 o'clock when I had it. I looked about for something to read, for I did not like to go about the castle until I had asked the Count's permission. There was absolutely nothing in the room, book, newspaper, or even writing materials. So I opened another door in the room and found a sort of library. The door opposite mine I tried, but found it locked. Tiny bit short of breath, just a little bit. It's fine. It's hay fever. It's quite good though, actually, because it makes me slow down the reading, which as a New Zealander, we talk fast, we mumble. We don't really want people to hear anything we're saying because it's all stupid. In the library, I found, to my great delight, a vast number of English books, whole shelves full of them, and bound volumes of magazines and newspapers. A table in the centre was littered with English magazines and newspapers, though none of them were of very recent date. The books were of the most varied kind: history, geography, politics, political economy, botany, geology, law, all relating to England and English life and customs and manners. There were even such books of reference as the London Directory, the Red and Blue books, Whitaker's Almanac, the Army and Navy lists, and, it somehow gladdened my heart to see it, the Law List. Famous books, you get it. Whilst I was looking at the books, the door opened and the Count entered. He saluted me in a hearty way and hoped that I had had a good night's rest. Then he went on, "I am glad you found your way in here, for I am sure there is much that will interest you. These companions," and he laid his hand on some of the books, "have been good friends to me, and for some years past, ever since I had the idea of going to London, have given me many, many hours of pleasure. Through them, I have come to know your great England, and to know her is to love her. I long to go through the crowded streets of your mighty London, to be in the midst of the whirl and rush of humanity, to share its life, its change, its death, and all that makes it what it is. But alas, as yet I only know your tongue through books. To you, my friend, I look that I know it to speak. But Count, I said, you know and speak English thoroughly. He bowed gravely. I thank you, my friend, for your all too flattering estimate, but yet I fear that I am but a little way on the road I would travel. True, I know the grammar and the words, but yet I not know how to speak them. And Dracula is a weeb. He's a what's that word for Americans who are obsessed with like Doctor Who and stuff? Teaboos. Teaboos. Quite funny, I think. Indeed, I said you speak excellently. Excellently, unlike me. Not so, he answered. Well, I know that did I move and speak in your London, none there are who would not know me for a stranger. That is not enough for me. Here I am noble, I am boyar, the common people know me, and I am master. But a stranger in a strange land, he is no one. Men know him not, and to know not is to care not for. I am content if I am like the rest, so that no man stops if he see me, or pause in his speaking if he hear my words. Ha ha, a stranger! I have been so long master that I would be master still, or at least that none other should be master of me. You come to me not alone as agent of my friend Peter Hawkins of Exeter, to tell me all about my new estate in London. You shall, I trust, rest here with me a while, so that by our talking I may learn the English intonation. And I would that you tell me when I make error, even of the smallest of my speaking. I am sorry that I had to be away so long today, but you will, I know, forgive one who has so many important affairs in hand. I mean, thinking about the hairy palm situation, I'm sure Dracula has a lot of important affairs in hand. It's a masturbation joke. Yeah, it's really good. I'm smart. Of course, I said all I could about being willing and asked if I might come into that room when I chose. He answered yes, certainly, and added, you may go anywhere you wish in the castle, except where the doors are locked, where of course you will not wish to go. There is a reason that all things are as they are, and did you see with my eyes and know with my knowledge, you would perhaps better understand. I said I was sure of this, and then he went on. We are in Transylvania, and Transylvania is not England. Our ways are not your ways, and there shall be to you many strange things. Nay, from what you have told me of your experiences already, you know something of what strange things there may be. um, sorry. I mean, I don't know if the accent that's being written out for Dracula is, in any way appropriate, but I am really looking forward to Van Helsing's insane accent. He's from nowhere and from everywhere. I think Van Helsing is an English dude who puts on that accent so that people let him get away with being wacky. Just my opinion. Don't cancel me. This led to much conversation, and as it was evident that he wanted to talk, if only for talking's sake, I asked him many questions regarding things that had already happened to me or come within my notice. Sometimes he sheered off the subject, or turned the conversation by pretending not to understand. But generally he answered all I asked most frankly. Then as time went on, and I had got somewhat bolder, I asked him of some of the strange things of the preceding night, as, for instance, why the coachman went to the places where he had seen the blue flames. Oh, good, we're getting... Yeah, it's supposed to be Holland. You'll see. You'll see. It'll be worth it. We're finally getting the blue flames explained. I couldn't remember if they got explained or not. That's cool. He then explained to me that it was commonly believed that on a certain night of the year, last night, in fact, when all evil spirits are supposed to have unchecked sway, a blue flame is seen over any place where treasure has been concealed. That treasure has been hidden, he went on, in the region through which you came last night. There can be little doubt, for it was the ground fought over for centuries by the Wallachian, the Saxon, and the Turk. Why, there is hardly a foot of soil in all this region that has not been enriched by the blood of men, patriots, or invaders. In old days there were stirring times, when the Austrian and the Hungarian came up in hordes, and the patriots went out to meet them, men and women, the aged and the children too, and waited their coming on the rocks above the passes, that they might sweep destruction on them with their artificial avalanches. When the invader was triumphant, he found but little, for whatever there was had been sheltered in the friendly soil. Treasure. But how, said I, can it have remained so long undiscovered, when there is a sure index to it if men will but take the trouble to look? The Count smiled, and as his lips ran back over his gums, the long, sharp, canine teeth showed out strangely. He answered, because your peasant is at heart a coward and a fool. Not very burning of you, Dracula. Those flames only appear on one night, and on that night no man of this land will, if he can help it, stir without his doors. And dear sir, even if he did, he would not know what to do. Why, even the peasant that you tell me of, who marked the place of the flame, would not know where to look in daylight, even for his own work. Even you would not, I dare be sworn, be able to find these places again. Then you are right, I said. I know no more than the dead where even to look for them. Then we drifted into other matters. Well, when you got a cliff and a bunch of rocks above it, you're going to want to chuck rocks on people from the top of the cliff, and it's better if it's an invading army and not just, people or sheep or wild dogs or whatever. Why is Dracula digging up treasure that presumably he buried hundreds of years ago? Oh, take it to England. Yeah, that makes sense. Come, he said at last, tell me of London and of the house which you have procured for me. With an apology for my remissness, I went into my own room to get the papers from my bag. Whilst I was placing them in order, I heard a rattling of china and silver in the next room, and as I passed through, noticed that the table had been cleared and the lamp lit, for it was by this time deep into the dark. The lamps were also lit in the study or library, and I found the Count lying on the sofa, reading, of all things in the world, an English Bradshaw's Guide, which I believe is a guide to railway timetables? I don't know. When I came in, he cleared the books and papers from the table, and with him I went into plans and deeds and figures of all sorts. He was interested in everything, and asked me a myriad questions about the place and its surroundings. He had clearly studied beforehand all that he could get on the subject of the neighbourhood, for he evidently at the end knew very much more than I did. If I was immortal, If I were immortal, I would walk around at night and kill anyone who followed me into a dark alley. Because, look how they behaved. They were asking for it. But let's not get into that here. When I remarked this, he answered, well, but my friend, is it not needful that I should? When I go there, I should be all alone. And my friend, Harker Jonathan. Nay, pardon me, I fall into my country's habit of putting your patronymic first. My friend, Jonathan Harker, will not be by my side to correct and aid me. He will be in Exeter, miles away, probably working up papers of the law with my other friend, Peter Hawkins. So, we went thoroughly into the business of the purchase of the estate at Purfleet. When I had told him the facts and got his signature to the necessary papers, and had written a letter with them ready to post to Mr. Hawkins, he began to ask me how I had come across so suitable a place. I read to him the notes which I had made at the time, and which I inscribe here. At Purfleet, on a by-road, I came across just such a place as seemed to be required, and where was displayed a dilapidated notice that the place was for sale. It is surrounded by a high wall of ancient structure built of heavy stones and has not been repaired for a large number of years. The closed gates are of heavy old oak and iron, all eaten with rust. The estate is called Carfax, no doubt a corruption of the old Quatre Faces, as the house is four-sided, agreeing with the cardinal points of the compass. Quatre faces meaning four faces, four fronts. It contains in all some 20 acres, quite surrounded by the solid stone wall above mentioned. There are many trees on it, which make it in places gloomy, and there is a deep, dark-looking pond or small lake, evidently fed by some springs, as the water is clear and flows away in a fair-sized stream. The house is very large, and of all periods back, I should say, to medieval times. For one part, it's of stone immensely thick, with only a few windows high up and heavily barred with iron. It looks like part of a keep, and is close to an old chapel or church. I could not enter it, as I had not the key of the door leading into it from the house, but I have taken, with my kodak, views of it from various points. The house has been added to, but in a very straggling way, and I can only guess at the amount of ground it covers, which must be very great. There are but few houses close at hand, one being a very large house, only recently added to and formed into a private lunatic asylum. It is not, however, visible from the grounds. So that's why the price was the price. It's by the new lunatic asylum. Great. As a lunatic myself, I kind of find this a little bit patronizing. Jono. When I had finished, he said, I am glad that it is old and big. I myself am of an old family, and to live in a new house would kill me. A house cannot be made habitable in a day, and after all, how few days go to make up a century? I rejoice also that there is a chapel of old times. We Transylvanian nobles love not to think that our bones may lie amongst the common dead. I seek not gaiety nor mirth, nor the bright voluptuousness of much sunshine and sparkling waters which please the young and gay. I am no longer young, and my heart, through weary years of mourning over the dead, is not attuned to mirth. Moreover, the walls of my castle are broken, the shadows are many, and the wind breathes cold through the broken battlements and casements. I love the shade and the shadow, and would be alone with my thoughts when I may. Somehow his words and his look did not seem to accord, or else it was that his cast of face made his smile look malignant and saturnine. Saturnine. Yeah. There are just so many easy jokes to make, which is, I think, why Victorian literature is popular. It's the only reason people read it, because it's funny. Presently, with an excuse, he left me, asking me to put all my papers together. He was some little time away, and I began to look at some of the books around me. One was an atlas, which I found opened naturally at England, as if that map had been much used. On looking at it, I found in certain places little rings marked, and on examining these, I noticed that one was near London on the east side, manifestly where his new estate was situated. The other two were Exeter and Whitby on the Yorkshire coast. It was the better part of an hour when the Count returned. Aha, he said, like a moppet. Still at your books. Good. But you must not work always. Come, I am informed that your supper is ready. Yeah. Oh man, if I had the chance to live in a house that was built of all different periods, reaching back to the Middle Ages, I'd go nuts. I would be licking the walls, trying to lick up all the history dust off them. I live in New Zealand. The kind of history I like to study is just not here. Which is not to say New Zealand doesn't have really interesting history, because it does, but it's not, it's not what I'm personally into. And not just because all of my relatives are the baddies, the colonizers. I'm informed that your supper is ready. Actually, I got a book of short stories by Robert Westall sent to me from Amazon before the Amazon boycott, obviously, and it's called Antique Dust. How old? How old was the house in Germany? Yeah, I think the gap in New Zealand history teaching between the Stone Age and colonial times is pretty intentional. Yeah, I think they're pretty much trying to say that, well, look, the Maori lived here in the Stone Age, and then we turned up on ships and we brought amazing things to them. All kinds of interesting new diseases and animals that would kill the native animals, and hedgehogs, and betrayal. Right. He took my arm and we went into the next room where I found an excellent supper ready on the table. The Count again excused himself, as he had dined out on his being away from home. That's so cool. So cool. Someday, someday, I may indeed go to Europe. Probably not. Could do. Probably not. Uh, the Count had dined out on his being away from home, but he sat as on the previous night and chatted whilst I ate. After supper, I smoked, and on the last evening, as on the last evening, fuck. After supper, I smoked, as on the last evening, and the Count stayed with me, chatting and asking questions on every conceivable subject, hour after hour. I felt that it was getting very late indeed, but I did not say anything, for I felt under obligation to meet my host's wishes in every way. I was not sleepy, as the long sleep yesterday had fortified me, but I could not help experiencing that chill which comes over one at the coming of the dawn, which is like, in its way, the turn of the tide. They say that people who are near death die generally at the change to the dawn, or at the turn of the tide. Anyone who has been tired, and tied as it were to his post, experienced this change in the atmosphere can well believe it. All at once we heard the crow of a cock coming up with preternatural stillness through the clear morning air. Count Dracula, jumping to his feet, said, "Why, there is the morning again! How remiss I am to let you stay up so long! You must make your conversation regarding my dear new country of England less interesting, so that I may not forget how time flies by us." And, with a courtly bow, he quickly left me. I went into my own room and drew the curtains, but there was little to notice. My window opened onto the courtyard. All I could see was the warm grey of quickening sky. So I pulled the curtains again and have written of this day. Oh yeah, no, I didn't suggest it was fancy. I just history. Kind of history I studied and have not, seen. Okay. We are very close to the end of chapter 2, so I'm going to finish that up. 8th of May. I began to fear as I wrote in this book that I was getting too diffuse, but now I am glad that I went into detail from the first, for there is something so strange about this place and all in it that I cannot but feel uneasy. I wish I was safe out of it, or that I had never come. It may be that this strange night existence is telling on me, but would that that were all. If there were anyone to talk to, I could bear it, but there is no one. I have only the Count to speak with, and he. I fear I am myself the only living soul within the place. Let me be prosaic, so far as facts can be. It will help me to bear up, and imagination must not run riot with me. If it does, I am lost. Let me say at once how I stand, or seem to. I only slept a few hours when I went to bed, and feeling that I could not sleep any more, got up. I had hung my shaving glass by the window, and was just beginning to shave. Suddenly I felt a hand on my shoulder, and heard the Count's voice saying to me, Good morning. I started, for it amazed me that I had not seen him, since the reflection of the glass covered the whole room behind me. In starting, I had cut myself slightly, but did not notice it at the moment. Having answered the Count's salutation, I turned to the glass again to see how I had been mistaken. This time there could be no error, for the man was close to me and I could see him over my shoulder, but there was no reflection of him in the mirror. The whole room behind me was displayed, but there was no sign of a man in it except myself. This was startling, and coming in on the top of many strange things was beginning to increase that vague feeling of uneasiness which I always have when the Count is near. But at the instant I saw that the cut had bled a little, and the blood was trickling over my chin. I laid down the razor, turning as I did so half round to look for some sticking plaster. When the Count saw my face, his eyes blazed with a sort of demoniac fury, and he suddenly made a grab at my throat. I drew away, and his hand touched the string of beads which held the crucifix. It made an instant change in him, for the fury passed so quickly that I could hardly believe it was ever there. Oh, that's so awesome! I just got a bath with feet on it. That's so cool. God damn it. I mean, I'm really happy for you. You got to live in that cool place. Take care, he said. Take care how you cut yourself. It's more dangerous than you think in this country. And seizing the shaving glass, he went on, and this is the wretched thing that has done the mischief. It is a foul bauble of man's vanity. Away with it. And opening the heavy window with one wrench of his terrible hand, he flung out the glass, which was shattered into 1,000 pieces on the stones of the courtyard far below. Then he withdrew without a word. It is very annoying, for I do not see how I am to shave, unless in my watch case or the bottom of the shaving pot, which is fortunately of metal. Ah, Jono is so English. Okay, so I was trying to shave, and then the guy hosting me, the creepy guy, he came up behind me, and I was like, hang on, I didn't see him in the mirror. And then I checked, yeah, he was there. He was not there in the mirror. That's weird. Oh, also he threw my mirror out the window and freaked out. It's just annoying. I know that Jono's getting there, but just calling it annoying is very funny. When I went into the dining room, breakfast was prepared, but I could not find the Count anywhere, so I breakfasted alone. It is strange that as yet I have not seen the Count eat or drink. He must be a very peculiar man. Sherlock Jono. After breakfast, I did a little exploring in the castle. I went out on the stairs and found a room looking towards the south. The view was magnificent, and from where I stood there was every opportunity of seeing it. The castle is on the very edge of a terrible precipice. A stone falling from the window would fall 1,000 feet without touching anything. As far as the eye can reach is a sea of green treetops, with occasionally a deep rift where there is a chasm. Here and there are silver threads where the rivers wind in deep gorges through the forest. But I am not in heart to describe beauty, for when I had seen the view, I explored further. Doors, doors, doors everywhere, and all locked and bolted. In no place, save from the windows and the castle walls, is there an available exit. The castle is a veritable prison, and I am a prisoner. Yeah, I know. I know that the annoying part is not being able to shave, but I know it seems like kind of a flippant word, or maybe a very nonchalant word for the whole situation. Um, but yeah. Anyway, that was chapter 2, which I'm really enjoying it, and I'm so sorry for all of the, cutting out and everything and the sniffling and you know, uh, yeah, if I wasn't working off mobile hotspot, I would probably want to do the next chapter, but unfortunately I am, so I won't. But thank you very much for joining me. Such England. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can you can be searching for an exit out of a vampire's castle, which is kind of a prison on the edge of a precipice, but you don't have to look scruffy. That's a choice. But yeah, thank you all very much. If I maybe I'll figure out how to read more later, but I doubt it. Tomorrow will be Marjorie Kemp, and the day after will be Dracula once more. Thanks so much for your patience, everyone. Unbelievable. So hopefully I will see you all tomorrow. Yeah, you're hearing a lot more than the text. I like to feel that I'm a co-writer of some kind. Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks so much. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.